I'm Jonee Coleman Brigham. I'm one of the co-instructors of Power Systems Journey, along with Paul Embertson. We're here today with Michael Noble. Michael, could you introduce your name and your affiliation, how you connected to the class, and anything else you want to share about yourself?
Sure. I'm Michael Noble, and I'm semi-retired. I have my own LLC, Noble Ideas LLC, and have clients in the private sector and in philanthropy and government. I am a longtime clean energy and environmental advocate in the nonprofit space for almost 30 years. I was the CEO of Fresh Energy and worked on the electricity system and our transportation system and the built environment, and increasingly working more on industrial decarbonization and agriculture as well.
Thank you. What have you been up to lately?
So I'm again, I never said I was retiring. I just said I was rewiring. And the clients I picked up in the private sector include two companies that are pioneers in deployment of distributed energy resources, and one client that is an iron mining client that is moving toward green iron production and green steel. And now I have one of the hyperscaler data center developers who wants to align data centers with Minnesota's 100% clean electricity standard. So I'm basically working for both foundations and private sectors. I don't have any government clients right now.
What do you think are the lessons we can learn from energy history to inform the future?
Well, you have to put first things first, which is that energy is an essential foundation for all human economic prosperity and support of survival. It has to be affordable and reliable. Uh, Society has a compact with our energy providers to deliver electricity reliably and affordably. And the need for energy to be sustainable and carbon free is more of a recent requirement, and its imperative is obvious from anybody who studies the plain physics of the climate crisis. But we can't substitute the sustainability imperative for those original imperatives of affordability and reliability.
In this time of shifting energy policies and priorities, what do you think are the longer term trends?
Well, I see the disruptive nature of our new federal government as pushing against an inevitability of decarbonization. Industry and government and uh, countries all over the world have embraced a vision of uh, benign energy that's not destroying our planet and not subjugating future generations to suffering. We need abundant, affordable electricity and energy to power the world, and it's just the plain physics of the matter is that it has to be carbon free. The temperature of the world keeps going up until we stop dumping carbon emissions into the atmosphere. And that's not an advocacy position, and it's not a, debatable in government policy. It's just what I like to say is the plain physics of the matter, the reality of the planet that we live on. So we either stop emitting emissions to the atmosphere or the world just keeps getting warmer. And all sensible and well-informed people can see the damages and the risks and the concerns of a world that just keeps getting warmer. 2024 was the warmest year ever, topping 2023 that was previously warmest year ever. And, 20 out of the 25 warmest years ever were all this century, actually probably closer to 23. The world is getting warmer, and it's just going to keep getting warmer until we stop emitting. So I think that's a very, very good prospects for the technologies and the policies and the industries that are addressing, again, a prosperous world with carbon-free energy.
What kind of energy stories do you think would engage the public to learn and care about energy transition issues?
You know, it's an old adage in the energy transition debate that most people aren't interested that much in energy. People want a warm shower and cold beer, and the best energy is the energy that can, economically and reliably provide me warm showers and cold beer. That's how most people interact with the energy sources. Is it working? Is it doing what I need to do? Uh, it's a special person that is amazed by the miracle of a full-size five-passenger automobile that can run on solar power and wind power, and not everybody gives a damn. Um, I think it's amazing that my car runs on wind power. I love that. I think about it when I drive, but it's not that interesting to everybody, and I have to acknowledge that. So, we just have to be honest with ourselves that a significant fraction of the American people just are interested in energy for the utility and services that it provides. That's just the way the world is.
What values and goals do you think should inform the energy transition?
Well, uh, values, values are different than goals. I think we need to bring everybody along. We need to make sure no one gets left behind. We need to make sure that uh, affordability and reliability are at the center of our strategy. Um, there'd be a giant pushback against the energy transition if people can't afford their basic needs. My goals are how fast can we get all the carbon out of every aspect of human society? And when I say every aspect of human society, I'm talking about, our electricity system and our industrial processes and our transportation economy. That there's easy parts and there's hard parts. How are we going to fly jet airplanes that are not producing carbon emissions? How are we going to make steel that is not producing carbon emissions? How are we going to make fertilizer that doesn't rely on the natural gas industry? Uh, there's what we used to call a hard to abate or hard to mitigate carbon emissions. I just think of them as the problems we haven't yet applied ourselves to. Aviation fuel and fertilizer and steel just are three that are uniquely Minnesota interesting because we have iron ore in the northern Minnesota, and we have agriculture in western and southern Minnesota, and we have Delta Airlines as a hub airline in the metro area. I think all three of those industries should be Minnesota-centered industries. But again, the key thing I want to emphasize again is every aspect of human enterprise, living our lives, refrigerating our food, getting to the store, going on vacation, uh, doing our work, every aspect of our lives has to be fueled by energy that is carbon free. And once we apply ourselves to the problem, it's an incredibly interesting opportunity with jobs and wealth creation and economic prosperity at every turn. These are seriously interesting engineering challenges, and I just think it's the most interesting time that there ever was in energy is right now.
How might the energy transition reimagine our electric generation, distribution, use, ownership, and everything else about our energy systems to achieve our goals?
Well, you ask about our electricity system, the generation and the transmission, the distribution. I really think that is the very, very centerpiece of climate strategy and decarbonization. In my career, again, working at Fresh Energy and in public policy and energy policy over 30 years, toward the end of my tenure, I just realized that there were two main goals, and all the other goals were subordinate to that. And one was that we have to get all the carbon out of our electricity supply, and two was that we have to electrify everything that we practically can. So electrify everything we can and get all the carbon out of electricity is like 1, 2 for decarbonization. And when we start to ask the question, electrify everything we can, we realize we can electrify almost everything. We can electrify our transportation system. People have proven that cars that run on electricity, on wind power and solar power and uh, uh, carbon-free electricity, people have proved that cars that run on carbon-free electricity are better, more reliable, more fun, better acceleration, more convenient. Get up every morning and your gas tank is full of wind power and solar power. But the transportation system is just the first step. We can electrify our homes with heat pump. We can electrify light industry with heat pump and thermal energy storage. We can replace our much of our natural gas infrastructure with thermal energy networks. Electrifying everything we can is a roadmap for decarbonization, the general decarbonization of society. Uh, we might not electrify absolutely everything, but we can electrify almost everything. And these industries are just, super exciting, whether it's, again, thermal energy for industry or heating fuels for homes or transportation fuel for, the light rail system or the train system or over the road trucking or automobile transportation in urban areas. Electricity is an amazing fuel. Now, the one thing to say about this is that our electricity system has evolved over the last 100 years, and over the last 25 years, the electricity system has grown incredibly slowly, like less than 1% load growth per year. And now when we say electrify everything we can, and we're talking about, buildings and transportation and then industry and, new loads like data centers and computing and artificial intelligence, we need to double or triple our electricity supply. And we need to double or triple our electricity supply in about the same time frame that we get all the carbon out. So over the next 15 or 20 or 25 years, we have to get all the carbon out of the electricity supply, but we need 2 to 3 times as much. And no one really knows whether we need 2 times as much or 3 times as much. So let's just say we need 2.5 times as much. That is an incredible engineering challenge to double or triple our total electricity supply while we get all the carbon out. That is an incredible energy and engineering challenge that, I always like to quote my good friend Jigar Shah, who ran the U.S. Department of Energy's Loan Program Office over the last 4 years. He calls it the largest wealth creation opportunity in human history. So it's not like sacrifice and uh, difficulty. It's like adventure and opportunity and prosperity. And I'm extremely excited about the adventure and the opportunity and prosperity of doubling our or tripling our electricity supply in the same timetable that we get all the carbon out.
What do you want people to know about the energy transition?
I want people to know that it's fun and the energy transition is going to be a ball. It's going to be super interesting. There's opportunities for every kind of career and every kind of professional person, whether they have a degree in science or engineering or public policy or law or uh, social uh, services or any degree, any credential, anything that people are bringing professionally to this world can plug into the energy transition because it's again as I said earlier the energy system is the foundation of all human prosperity. We nothing happens without energy. Nothing in society and nothing in commerce, nothing in economic development happens without being fueled by energy. So if we're changing everything in energy, it's an extremely interesting place to put your mark down.
It's great. What else is on your mind, Michael?
Well, I'm very, very interested in the distribution system. We oftentimes divide the electricity system into the transmission system and the generation system and the distribution system. The distribution system is the wires and the substations and the transformers, up and down your alley and your neighborhood. And I think we've underinvested in our distribution system uh, dramatically, and I think there's really incredible opportunities there to make our distribution system stronger and more resilient and more sustainable by direct investment. And I like the model of having the utilities invest. Typically the utilities have spent most of their time and money and engineering expertise on, what new generation sources do we need and where should the new transmission lines be built and how many transmission lines do we need and how many wind farms and solar farms do we need. But finally, utilities are asking the question, ah, what if the generation and the reliability came out of our distribution system? What if along, Minnesota arterial roads like Franklin Avenue and Lake Street and Marshall and University Avenue, what if we were investing in solar and storage on all the commercial buildings up and down those arterial roads? We would be taking the oldest and wobbliest part of our electricity system, the distribution systems that were built in the 1920s. We would be modernizing them and upgrading them with resilience and investment. But we would also be it's the quickest and fastest and most um, hassle-free way to add new electricity to the system is by putting solar energy on buildings and putting batteries in parking lots and basements. So I believe that the distribution system revolution can, in part, be led by the electric utilities themselves. Historically, the distribution system improvements have been happening by, wealthy people who say, I'd like solar on my house, or I'd like solar on my brewery, so my customers know that I'm green. And it's very small little fraction of people that do it. But I'm interested in the electric utility itself, kind of blanketing their service territory with solar and storage. And I'm excited that that future is not very far away.
Well, this leads us to just opening it up. That's the end of the formal questions. So, and go into some open discussion.
Well,
And
I can say other things I'm interested in right now. I mentioned I mentioned the importance of decarbonizing everything, and we've just spent a lot of time on the electric system itself and on buildings, decarbonizing buildings, and on transportation. And of course, I'm very, very interested in buildings and transportation. One exciting thing going on in buildings right now is how do we start to decarbonize the gas infrastructure? Now, the gas system is, a network of pipes that lay throughout the cities and through the suburbs. Natural gas infrastructure pipes are laid everywhere, and there's more and more interest in demonstrating that we can replace that aging infrastructure with hot water pipes that maybe are based on heat pumps that can pump heat out of the earth, pump heat out of the aquifers, or even just pump heat out of the air, and building a network of hot water distribution systems that gradually replaces the gas infrastructure over time is one decarbonization strategy that is being pioneered in Boston and Massachusetts and being discussed by many grassroots groups and advocacy groups and companies, private companies and gas utilities in Minnesota. How do we modernize the old system? Rather than just me in my own home thinking, could I replace my boiler and my furnace with a heat pump? Wouldn't it be more interesting if neighborhoods could think, could we replace our entire furnace dependent, gas dependent furnace systems with hot water systems based on renewable electricity? And that a hot water system based on renewable electricity is going to power all the homes and businesses on the east side of St. Paul at the Hillcrest site, and it could be the first example of a large commercial development in Minnesota that the entire heating and cooling of all the buildings is carbon free. So that's one thing I'm super, super excited about. I mentioned industrial decarbonization is a growing passion of mine. I'm extremely interested in what is the future of aviation and how do we get from running airplanes on jet fuel to running airplanes carbon free, and what are the technologies and the steps. And we're lucky to have Delta Airlines here that is thinking really hard about that. I mentioned that I'm interested in the industry of fertilizer. Right now, all fertilizer in America comes from breaking apart natural gas. Uh, and instead, we could make fertilizer. And University of Minnesota is a pioneer that's recognized worldwide out at the University of Minnesota in Morris. That instead we could make fertilizer from hydrogen and from nitrogen that we pull from the sky and blend it into ammonia. And if we add carbon dioxide, we could blend it into urea, which is a pelletized fertilizer. That's an industry that I'd love to see attracted to rural Minnesota. And in northern Minnesota, I'm extremely interested in our iron mines. And we have a new iron mine coming within the next 12 to 20 months in northern Minnesota that is going to be producing an iron ore pellet that is ready for direct reduction in a electric arc furnace, and we could electrify our iron production and eventually produce green steel, carbon free or extremely low carbon steel. Could be a Minnesota industry. So I'm interested in all of it. I'm interested in transportation, in buildings, in industry. Uh, uh, and I'm especially interested that our electric industry itself, our electric utilities, that really don't get enough credit and enough acknowledgement. Companies like Minnesota Power and Xcel Energy and Great River Energy don't get the acknowledgement that they deserve. That they're all trying to figure out how do we produce the electricity we need carbon free, and mercifully we now have a law in Minnesota that says all the electricity by 2040 will be free of carbon emissions. But the exciting part of it is that we're going to be using it everywhere. We're going to be using it in, again, in buildings and transportation and industry. Uh, it's a real renaissance for the electric power industry, and one of the most exciting things of our time. And I just don't believe that the federal government can roll this back. This to me is an inevitability, and maybe it'll be slowed or held up some by public policy, but the economics and the industrial drivers and the commitment of people across the society to me means the energy transition is inevitable.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very hopeful, and one of the things that Paul and I really appreciate about you and why we consider you the closer in our class is that the bringing this down to like first principles of the transition, but also just the incredible optimism and joy you bring to the story and the future. So thank you very much for your time.
You're very gracious to invite me to talk with you, and I've always admired the work you, Joni, and Paul do there at the university, and I'm thrilled that you would reach out to me.